Hello everyone, today we'll be seeing how fast Hydreigon can beat Pokemon Omega Ruby in a solo run challenge. Let's get straight into the video. This Pokemon was recommended to me by Axukairi, who's done a lot of help with the channel. He really wanted me to give this Pokemon a try in Omega Ruby. I'm like, you know what, you've done a lot for me, sure. Let's take a look though. I'm quite happy to use this Pokemon. It's definitely one of my favorites from Generation 5. We have 92 HP. Okay, you know what? Why did Game Freak start giving Pokemon with stats that doesn't end in a 5 or a 0? It's really annoying. It's like they made it up out of their left butt wipe. Anyway, 105 attack, 90 defense, 125 special attack, 90 special defense, and 98 speed. We're in the slow level up group just as intended for a, pseudo-legendary. But having access to great stats like this means not only we're not going to have speed problems, but we can essentially go either attack or special. I mean, we'll lean towards special just a little bit, but we can really get away with using either or. And if we take a look at our level up moveset, we get a bunch of level 1 moves, but our actual starting moveset is going to be Focus Energy, Bite, Dragon Rage, and Tri Attack. Having access to early game Dragon Rage is straight up frickin' broken. I don't think I need to explain why. A lot of opponents in the early game have low HP. Yet I explained it anyway. Anyway, at level 12 is when we'll get our next move, Headbutt, and then after that we get Dragon Breath, Roar, Crunch, Slam, Dragon Pulse, Work Up, which is going to be great, Dragon Rush, Body Slam, Scary Face, Hyper Voice, and Outrage. It is a little sad and kind of surprising that we don't get Dragon Dance. You would kind of expect this thing to get Dragon Dance, but hey, I'll take Work Up. And if we take a look at our TM and HM learn set, this thing gets a lot of coverage. We get moves like Earthquake, Roost, Fire moves, Charge Beam, Focus Blast, Steel Wing, Stone Edge, Rock Slide. We get a lot of moves. I'm not going to list them all here, but they're on the right side if you ever want to look at them later. And as we completely destroy the early game trainers with Dragon Rage, let's go over our ability, nature, and hidden power choice. Our ability is Levitate, which makes us immune to ground type attacks, except Sand Attack obviously, because that'd be too OP. And our nature is going to be Rash. I'm going to give myself plus special attack minus special defense. We really do not need extra speed. The Pokemon in this game generally aren't that fast when it comes to speed stats. The fastest Pokemon is pretty much Zinnia's Noivern, but we're not really going to have to be worried about that thing. And our hidden power typing is Dark, which essentially means we're not using hidden power. Although, if we did decide to use it, it'd be a great 60 power special dark move, especially since all our dark moves by level up are physical, but we do learn Dark Pulse, which we can get later in the run, so I don't think we're going to be using hidden power though. Anyway, just as I've mentioned before, the early game was going to be an absolute joke with having Dragon Rage on the moveset, and we can check it out on our first gym leader battle with Roxanne. She leads off with Geodude. I'm going to use Bite first before Dragon Rage because the Geodude and the Nose Pass on her team have Sturdy. And obviously that's not going to be good for Dragon Rage, so I want to do a little bit of chip damage first. And because of that, I can completely destroy her entire team. And at this point, we got to rescue the Devon goods and make our way to Dewford Island. But unfortunately, long gone are the days of asking the age-old question, should we fight Brawly? Or delay him until later, because in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Mr. Briny will not take you on the boat. You can't even see Steven Stone until you beat Brawly, so I have to beat him, and I am at a type disadvantage, but we still have Dragon Rage, so let's see how this fight goes. Brawly leads off with his Machop. I am level 14 for this fight, and my moveset is still generally the same. I do decide to use a Tri Attack first because this Machop has more than 40 HP. But on the Makuhita though, I am fine with using Dragon Rage because he really doesn't have much he could do to me. And you know what, he already used his Super Potion earlier on the Machop, so it's pretty much a good idea to just spam Dragon Rage. And with Brawly defeated, we can talk to Steven Stone and get the TM for Steel Wing, which we actually could learn if we wanted to. But before I leave though, I do catch a Makuhita for Strength later. We're not going to need Strength until we get to the Seafloor Cavern, but we're still gonna need a Strength user. I did catch a Zigzagoon earlier for Cut and Surf. And once I set sail on Briney's boat to Route 109, I do fight some of the trainers on the beach. I am a little bit worried on how Watson's gonna go, but honestly, he's not gonna be too bad. I just want the training because the slow level up group is starting to catch up to me really quick. Plus, the trainers in the Soda House are pretty good. There's more trainers in here than the original. I think in the original there were 3, and in this game there's 5. So quite a lot of trainers. Although one of them does have a Sableye. Just a heads up if you ever run a Pokemon with a lot of normal type moves. And then inside the Slateport City Museum, while I'm fighting off the Team Magma Grunts, I finally learned Dragon Breath at level 17 and replaced Dragon Rage with it. Dragon Rage is really not going to be useful anymore at this point in the game, and Dragon Breath is quite a mediocre move. But hey, it's still going to be an effective power of 90. And I'm still going to be doing more training though. I do clear out the entire trick house, but there's no rare candy at the end like in the originals. There is an expert belt to boost the power of super effective moves by 20%, as well as the TM for Taunt, which Hydreigon can learn. There's pretty much only one use for Taunt in an Omega Ruby solo run that could be very good. You can use it on Phoebe's Dusclops to prevent it from using Curse. Because the Substitute TM, not only Substitute doesn't block Curse anymore starting Gen 6, but even if it did, it's locked to one of those random Mirage Islands that spawn once per day, so it's essentially off limits. We're never going to have access to it. Kind of like the original Ruby and Sapphire, because the Substitute move tutor didn't exist until Fire Red, Leaf Green, and Emerald. But not only we have Dragon Breath for great damage, as soon as we get to Mauville City after destroying the rival, we can actually spend 10,000 Poké Dollars and buy the TM for Charge Beam, as well as buying Bulldoze. Bulldoze is obviously going to be our answer for Watson, plus Charge Beam will have a 70% chance of boosting our special attack by 1 stage. It'll at least carry us over until we get Work Up, but obviously Charge Beam is not needed for Watson. Let's just go completely destroy his ass with Bulldoze. He leads off with his Magnemite, which does have Sturdy. I do have a Cherry Berry equipped in case of Thunder Wave. I really should have used a Bite first, kind of like I did with Roxanne. I don't know why I forgot. And on the Magneton, fortunately the Magneton does not have Sturdy, and I can one-shot it and the following Voltorb with Bulldoze. This fight would generally be harder if it was the Magneton that had Sturdy, not the Magnemite. So honestly, Watson is sort of downgraded in this game. But the thing is, the thing that really makes him hard in the originals is moves like Dig are locked off after Watson. And while that's still true in this game, the Mart will literally sell you Power Up Punch or Bulldoze for this fight. Plus Rock Smash is a 40 power move instead of 20, so it's at least a lot better than it used to be. And with Watson defeated, I can do some training on the next few routes and make my way to Fall Arbor Town. I do enter the Mart right here and sell some things to buy some Super Repels, because obviously we're going to need to prevent wild Pokemon from showing up. But I did have to sell a couple of things, because remember, it cost a lot of money to buy 2 TMs from Mauville, because every TM there costs 10,000 Poké Dollars. So I spent 20,000 just on buying Charge Beam and Bulldoze, but it was worth it. And then look at this, as I'm heading towards Meteor Falls, I'm trying to bike past this hiker. You can see him clearly looking up and he still sees me anyway. Dude, he's a freaking cheater. Hydreigon obviously has no issues with the Team Magma multi-battle inside Meteor Falls, and then I can take a cable car up Mount Chimney and go prepare to take on Maxie. Maxie is kinda difficult in these runs if you're not prepared. However though, there is one benefit in this game is you can actually get Person Berries before this fight. I mean, you could in the originals, but his Mightyena does like using Swagger on you in this fight, which he did not have in the original games. In fact, on the very first turn against him, he goes for Insurance instead of Swagger, and then he decides to roar me out for no reason. Thanks buddy, that literally got rid of the Intimidate you put on me. And with the Mightyena taken out, the Makuhita hogs a bunch of my experience, And then on the Camerupt, I'm going to have to two-shot it with Dragon Breath, but it does use Amnesia, but Camerupt is not really that good. And then on the Golbat, I'm going to have to two-shot it with Crunch. It does hit me with Supersonic, but it fortunately does not work because of my Person Berry. And with my ability to first try Maxi cleared, I can go down Jagged Pass and go take on Flannery. Flannery leads off with a Slugma. I still have Bulldoze on this fight compared to Watson, so Bulldoze is obviously going to one-shot both it and the Numel, but I can't really say the same for Torkoal. Torkoal has extremely good defense, and it just likes wasting its time setting up with Curse, but fortunately for me, I can just switch over to Dragon Breath and just finish it from there. And with Flannery defeated, as soon as I get out of the gym, I don't have to walk back to Petalburg. The rival literally just offers to take you back. Well, let's go take on Norman now. Norman leads off with Slacking. I now have the move Charge Beam on my learn set to boost my special attack, and his Slacking does something pretty stupid and it encores me into using Charge Beam. So I'm just going to be getting tons of special attack boosts until the Encore wears off, and by the time it wears off, I've probably gotten 2 or 3 special attack boosts, and I'm actually able to one-shot his Slacking thanks to a critical hit. I'm not sure if the crit mattered, but let's assume it did. So yeah, Norman completely destroyed. And then with Norman defeated, Wally will actually take you to Mauville City, so that way it'll be a lot closer for me to get to Fortree City and take on Winona. However though, before we can get to Fortree City, we have to take on a double battle with Team Magma in front of the Latios on this little Mirage Island, but I actually prepared for this. I literally taught Hydreigon Surf specifically for this moment. Well, it'll be useful in other parts of the run, but at least having Surf is going to be quite nice. Surprisingly, the Camerupt survives. And as soon as the battle is finished, I get the Latios added to my team, which is going to be my Waterfall and Dive user. Going to be quite nice. Well, Fly as well. And then I can make my way up to the Weather Institute, have no problems there, and then get into Winona's gym. And while fighting one of the gym trainers, I make my way to level 32, and I now have Dragon Pulse on my moveset. Yeah, now we're getting somewhere with our moveset. And at level 38, we'll get access to Workup, but I am going to have to wait a little bit though to get to that point. But let's see how Dragon Pulse does against Winona. Winona leads off with Swellow. I go ahead and use 1 Charge Beam on it. It does survive in red health, but I did get a special attack boost, and because of it, I'm able to knock it out. And then Dragon Pulse one-shots the Altaria, and then on the Skarmory, it is going to be a 2-shot, but it doesn't matter. It has Sturdy anyway. And then on the Pelipper, I can switch to Charge Beam and finish it off too. So yeah, so far, we have 6 gym badges, and we don't have a single reset or blackout. Yeah, Hydreigon is an absolute beast. And that streak is definitely going to continue. I continue just completely destroying everyone in my path, and even on Mount Pyre, I still have Surf on my moveset for all the Camerupts on these people's teams. But however though, at this point, I gotta do the Team Magma hideout section, but when you go to Slateport City and you see Team Magma steal the submarine, Captain Stern does give you a free boat ride to Lily Cove City, so there actually is no point to actually set your fly point here like in the original games. Plus, the rival fight here is mandatory because they moved it to the bottom of the stairs instead of in front of the department store. And even though this is the last rival fight in the main story, at least if you don't count the one in the credits, it is actually a kind of a terrifying fight. They raised his levels by a few, so his starter is actually fully evolved at this point. And while doing this battle, I finally have the move Workup. I am going to be holding on to this move as long as possible. Plus, I do go into this house right here and get the TM for rest as well. This will obviously have its uses later in the run. I'll finish up the Team Magma hideout section really quick, all thanks to having Surf on my moveset, including having Surf for the Horde battle with the 5 Team Magma Grunts. Normally this is very annoying, but Surf just one-shots all of them, saving so much time. And then before I go take on Tate and Liza in Mossdeep City, I'm gonna do a bunch of the training in the water because I need Pacific Log Town on my fly map anyway because I always do the Delta episode in my runs. Normally, I generally don't do the post game in my runs. I make an exception for Omega Ruby just because I really love Zinnia as a character, and her theme is pretty awesome. I just want an excuse to have her as an intro for something. So that's pretty much the reason. It's just a fun battle to do. Plus, it's actually interesting because she uses a Mega Salamence. Unfortunately for me though, while I was on the Rapids routes, I was actually fighting Black Belt Hidashi, I think his name is, and I actually get a blackout on his Heracross after it knocks me out with Mega Horn. I did not expect that, and it took quite a while to have all my Pokemon die because I had a Latios on my team, which made things kind of annoying, but I do eventually black out, and Hydreigon gets its very first blackout on a black belt. Just great. That's just embarrassing. It doesn't matter though, I go back and get my revenge on him, and then I can finally head back to Mossdeep City and go take on Tate and Liza for real this time. So let's see how this fight goes. They lead off with Solrock and Lunatone. I still have Surf on my moveset, and I can use this to knock out my HM user, as well as do half to the Solrock and the Lunatone. Yeah, Surf is really good for this team, especially since they only each have one Pokemon, so they're not as good as they would be in Emerald version, but hey, I'll take this win. Normally in these runs, after you take on Tate and Liza, you just go in the seafloor cavern and just destroy the Aqua and Magma Grunts there. Well, Magma Grunts in this game. But at the very end, there is a boss fight with Maxie, and he will have Mega Camerupt, but Mega Camerupt is not really that good, because check out the fight. For some reason, his lead Mightyena doesn't have Intimidate anymore, and I can just set up one workup. It does hit me with Scary Face though, lowering my speed by a little bit. But that's fine though, I can still outspeed the Weezing that comes after, and Crobat's Acrobatics doesn't do too much. And since Camerupt is so slow, I can just one-shot it with a 4-time super effective Surf. If I was doing Alpha Sapphire, Archie would definitely be a harder fight because Mega Sharpedo is pretty fast, but I'm not playing that game. And for good reason too, because in my Omega Ruby runs, I have a rule where I mandate that I have to defeat Primal Groudon. If I was playing Alpha Sapphire, a lot of Pokemon straight up would not be able to defeat Kyogre. Because what makes Primal Groudon at least a possibility for any Pokemon is that it does have a 1 in 4 chance of going for Rest, but Kyogre has Aqua Ring instead of Rest, and it could just be completely unstoppable because it'll have the rain boosted Origin Pulse with Ice Beam, so you can definitely see why a lot of Pokemon may not even be able to defeat Kyogre. But if I was playing Alpha Sapphire, I probably wouldn't have that rule in place. I have it in place for Groudon though, just because there is always a chance to beat it, plus it's fun. I did end up using all of my rare candies though before this fight, and that's fine though, because check this out, since I have Levitate, it cannot hit me with Precipitate Blades or its own Earthquake. Plus, I can't use Surf in this fight because of the harsh sunlight, but you can get the TM for Earthquake in the Seafloor Cavern, and I taught it specifically for this fight. But with Primal Groudon defeated, we still have one more gym leader to take on before we get to the Pokemon League. So let's go take on Wallace. Wallace leads off with his Love Disc. I go ahead and just defeat it in one hit. I don't bother setting up on it because it has the ability to confuse you with Sweet Kiss. But honestly, I should have retaught Charge Beam for this fight because it would make this fight an absolute joke and there would never be a reason to use Workup here. Well, you would have to Dragon Pulse the Wish Cache, but I still stand by what I said. But at least Wallace is still a first try. Before I go to Victory Road though, I fly around the region and get all the rare candies I missed. Since unlike in the original games where you had to walk everywhere where you could just pick up rare candies along the way, you get teleported to a whole lot of places, so I do have to do a lot of flying. And I do even switch bikes at one point, because there is a rare candy locked behind an acro bike, but there's also a rare candy locked behind the mock bike. It existed in the original games, but it's over a bunch of cracked tiles, which is straight up almost impossible to go over on 4x speed, so I just pretend that candy doesn't exist. But in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, it's just a bunch of ramps, so it's very easy to get the bike. Plus, there's no reason for me to switch back to the acro bike, so I can just keep the mock bike, which is actually faster than the acro bike. But with all the rare candies obtained, I can make my way through Victory Road, have a very unfortunate blackout at one of the fights near the start, but at the very end, I can go take on Wally. Wally is generally pretty easy here because his Altaria is a pretty good setup target. All I really need is one workup though. But with the one workup, I can just destroy his whole team, although his Magneton does have Sturdy, which is a little bit annoying, but fortunately I didn't get paralyzed or anything like that. But then when his Gallade comes out, I use Dragon Pulse, and fortunately he does not have Mega Gardevoir. If he had Gardevoir, it would be immune to Dragon, so I probably would have had to use Earthquake or something. But at least Wally was pretty easy. And now with Wally defeated, we are now in the Pokemon League. I heal up at the center, buy some full restores, and now we need to go take on the final 5 trainers. Let's do this shit. The first member of the Elite Four is Sydney, the user of Dark types. He leads off with Mighty Yenna. Before I entered here, I went to the move deleter to delete Surf, and now I have Incinerate. If you saw my Heatmore video yesterday, this move is very bad, but I have Workup to set up my special attack, but the main reason I have Incinerate is for his Cacturn and his Shift Tree. Although, now that I think about it, I was using Workup anyway. I think Dragon Pulse would have been just fine, so honestly, I think Incinerate might have been a waste of time. But I still defeat Sydney on the first attempt. Next up is the Ghost-type Elite Four member, Phoebe. Phoebe leads off with her Dusclops. I don't have Taunt in this fight because I forgot to teach it, and because of that fact, I end up getting hit with Curse and I die, so I end up getting a very early reset. And I actually forgot to save for Phoebe by mistake because I was spamming A too fast, so I have to defeat Sydney again. Well, that sucks. When I do make it back to Phoebe, I do have Taunt on my moveset now. I outspeed used Taunt, which prevented it from using Curse right away, which is really good. And by the time the taunt wears off, I can set up to around +2 in my special attack, and I can just one-shot her entire team with Dragon Pulse. Next up is the Ice-type Elite Four member, Glacia. On the lead Galele, I actually use Taunt on it to prevent it from using Light Screen, and I only use one Workup and I can knock it out with Incinerate, and then I can knock out the 2 Frostlass coming up as well with Incinerate. I can't use it on the Walrein though because they're neutral to fire, plus they do have Thick Fat. But honestly still, a super effective Incinerate has an effective power of 60, while Stab Dragon Pulse is an effective power of around 130. So honestly, I really should not have bothered with Incinerate. This move is so frickin' bad. Next up is the Dragon-type Elite Four member, Drake. We both have a type advantage against each other, but setting up on his Altaria is very bad because it does have Moonblast, which I am 4 times weak to. I was only able to get off one Workup before getting a quick reset. On the second attempt, I use only one Workup, but then Moonblast lowers my special attack, so I literally set up that Workup for nothing. But look at this. I still one-shot everything. I legitimately think I just wasted my time with that Workup. I should have just swept. Maybe equip an Expert Belt if needed. So yeah, I have not been playing this that good. This thing is definitely got a lot more potential for a really good time. But at least the Steven Stone fight will be just fine. I do teach Rest on my moveset, because his lead Skarmory has Toxic, but I'm not going to equip a Pecha or a Chesto Berry because I want to hold on to the Expert Belt. So let's see how Steven Stone goes, the champion of Hoenn. He leads off with Skarmory. I do use a couple of workups, and as soon as my health gets low, I'm going to have to use Rest to get my health back up high. And once I eventually set up enough, I can just defeat it with Incinerate. But honestly, a resisted Dragon Pulse has a higher effective power than a super effective Incinerate. The only benefit Incinerate has is getting rid of the opponent's held berries. So I still stand by what I said. I think I really should have skipped this move. Besides Steven Stone's Skarmory, his Aggron also has Sturdy, but fortunately it's not able to do too much damage to me, and I am able to defeat Steven Stone on the very first try. However though, we are not done yet. My Omega Ruby runs finish after defeating Zinnia in the Delta episode. There's really only two mandatory major fights here. There's the battle with Wallace with his Emerald team, and there's the battle with Zinnia herself. There is a rival fight in the credits that you have to do, but you're not required to win the fight and you gain no XP from it. It's kind of like the AZ fight in X and Y in the credits. It really doesn't do anything, so you can just lose that fight if you want to. It's probably fastest to lose it, but I always try to win it. It's just a mental thing of mine. So let's skip straight to the Wallace battle. He leads off with his Wailord, and on my Hydreigon I'm level 62. I still have Workup on my moveset. I'm just going to use one Workup as the Wailord hits me with Blizzard. Fortunately, the Blizzard did less than half, and then on the Tentacruel, it has very high special defense, but Dragon Pulse still one-shots, although it is going to have to two-shot the Melodic, but there's not really much the Melodic can even do about it. And all I can really do from here is just spam Dragon Pulse over and over again. And with Wallace defeated, we still have our very last battle in the run where we take on Zinnia. We don't have to have a full party, because if you try to have a full party and try to send Rayquaza to the boxes, it will not let you. You are actually required to have Rayquaza on your team for the Zinnia fight, especially in slot 1. So what I end up having to do is just switching to an HM user to tank one hit from Goodra, and then switch into my actual Pokemon and do the fight for real. So let's go take on Zinnia and finish this run. On her Goodra, I set up one Workup, and I do have a Citrus Berry equipped because her Goodra has Ice Beam, which will hurt really bad, and I barely survive somehow. I have no idea how, but fortunately for me, as soon as I defeat the Goodra, Dragon Pulse is enough to one-shot the rest of her team, and I clock in with a real time of 1 hour, 44 minutes, and 25 seconds, with 2 resets and 3 blackouts, a bunch of which probably could have been avoided. And I finish the game at level 68, and I get a game time after the credits of 7 hours flat. So yeah, despite those issues I had with Hydreigon during the later parts of the game, with those unnecessary blackouts and some very unfortunate resets, especially in the league, I think this Pokemon can do a bit better, but Hydreigon still completely destroyed the game. If we take a look at the leaderboard, it truly deserves one of the top slots in this run. And honestly, I'm still quite proud of the results, although like I said, it can definitely do better. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more, and be sure to follow me on my socials or support the channel through YouTube memberships. YouTube members get access to the patch files for all the backport Pokemon we do on stream. Tomorrow, we're actually going to be going into Pokemon Yellow. We're going to be playing through Pokemon Yellow with a very unfortunate Pokemon. We're going to be playing through Pokemon Yellow with Onix. I have no idea what made me want to do this, but I know other people have done it, and I am kind of excited to show off the run. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow as we continue Daily December.